My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I am 34 years old, and I never imagined that the worst day of my life would turn into the day everything changed for me. I was sitting on a cold metal bench at the airport with my phone clutched in my hand and tears streaming down my face because I had just gotten the call that every daughter dreads. My mother was dying, and I had no way to get home in time. Every flight was booked, every seat was gone, and the next available ticket was 2 days away. 2 days I did not have. I kept whispering to myself that this could not be happening while strangers walked past me, none of them stopping, none of them even glancing my way. I felt more alone in that moment than I had ever felt in my entire life. And for the first time in years, all the money and success I had built meant absolutely nothing to me. I was the CEO of a growing tech company, a woman who had clawed her way up from nothing, who negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without blinking. And yet in that airport, I was just a broken daughter with no way to reach her mother. Then I heard a gentle voice ask if I was okay. I looked up and saw a man standing there with a little girl holding his hand. He introduced himself as Daniel Reeves, 38 years old, and the little girl beside him was his daughter Emma, only 7 years old, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit against her chest. I tried to wave him off, telling him I was fine, but the tears betrayed me. Through broken sobs, I explained that my mother was dying 3 states away and I could not get a flight in time. Daniel did not hesitate for even a second. He simply said, "Come with us." I blinked at him, certain I had misheard. He explained that he was driving cross-country that very night to see his own ailing father and that he had room in his car if I needed a ride. Part of the way, I stared at this stranger, this man with tired eyes and an old flannel jacket, offering me a piece of his plan without knowing anything about me. I told him I could not possibly impose on him and his daughter, but he just shook his head and said, "Family is family, and nobody should face something like this alone." Something about his voice, steady and sure despite his own visible exhaustion, made me trust him instantly. I gathered my bag and followed him out to the parking garage where an old sedan waited, its paint faded and one hubcap missing. Emma climbed into the back seat and patted the spot beside her, inviting me to sit next to her like we were already friends. As we drove through the night, Daniel told me about his life. He had lost his wife 2 years earlier and had been raising Emma alone ever since, working 2 jobs just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. He was not wealthy, he was not comfortable, yet he was willing to share what little he had with a total stranger. I did not tell him who I really was. I did not mention my company or the deals I had closed or the assets under my name. To him, I was simply Sarah, a woman crying at an airport who needed help, and that was enough for him to open his car door and his heart. Somewhere around midnight, as Emma slept with her head resting on my shoulder, I found myself sobbing quietly again. But this time it was not only from grief. It was from the overwhelming realization that kindness like this still existed in the world, freely given with nothing expected in return. Daniel drove through the night without complaint, stopping only for gas and coffee, refusing every time I tried to pay him back. When we finally reached the hospital exit near my mother's town, I asked him to wait just for a moment, and I called my assistant. I arranged for a car service to take Daniel and Emma the rest of the way to his father, fully paid, along with a hotel room so they could rest before continuing their journey. When Daniel realized what I had done, and when he finally learned the truth about who I was, he was stunned into silence. I told him that his kindness did not need my money to mean something, but I wanted his exhaustion to have a little relief. I made it to my mother's bedside in time to hold her hand and tell her I loved her one final time. That moment would not have been possible without a stranger who saw a crying woman and chose compassion over convenience. Daniel and Emma remained in my life long after that night, not because of what I could offer them, but because of the bond we formed on that long, dark drive. Sometimes the smallest decision to say come with us can change 2 lives forever. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories, because kindness like this deserves to be seen and remembered.